Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gallatin County Republican Women's Facebook live stream with special guest Elsie Arntzen, incumbent running for re-election to Montana's State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Before winning the election to become Montana's State Superintendent of Public Instruction in 2016, Elsie Arntzen was an elementary school teacher for 23 years. As your state superintendent, Elsie has worked tirelessly to ensure that the next generations of Montana students are equipped with the foundations for success. She brought her unique perspective to Montana's capital, where she has served for over a decade as a citizen legislator representing the same district where she spent most of her career helping and educating at-risk youth. Elsie Arntzen is committed to continuing her bold agenda to expand opportunities for all students, whether their path leads to higher education or directly to a career. Elsie is endorsed by Ryan Zinke, by Senator Steve Daines, Congressman Greg Gianforte, and Gallatin County Republican women, and her fellow conservative land board commissioners. She has received support from the Montana Petroleum Association and Montana Wood Products Association. Please welcome Elsie Arntzen.
Good evening. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you, Gallatin County Republican women. So you have some questions for me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to do the Q&A now?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right, Elsie, I'll go ahead and read you the questions. The first question is, what are you hearing from school and community leaders about local control amid the pandemic?
Thank you for that. It's Elsie Arntzen, and local control is that middle name, and it's exceedingly important that we maintain the traditional value of Montana, especially in education. Local control means that in our Montana Constitution, in Title 10, Section 8, that local control is embedded and given to our local elected trustees. And that's pretty much gone out the window right now with the governor's directives. And I understand we're in a health crisis, a pandemic, but it's most important that the reflection of these directives, they need to be more so at that local level. Communities across our state in Montana are very different. We have 821 schools across Montana, 404 districts that have these elected officials in them. They know what's best for their families. They know what's best for the students that they enrich and that they support in their communities. It is up to them to determine what kind of curriculum is given. At the state level, I give state standards. There are 12 teaching and learning standards, but it's up for that local control model to make sure that that happens. So during this pandemic, things have changed. Everyone is searching for a one common answer. And I can graciously say the leadership needs to occur at that local level. I can give a lot of options and I can give guidance as well. But what happens here in Gallatin County or what happens in Missoula County or in Prairie is totally unique. And that's how it is, and that's how it should be. So we're resilient in Montana. We're going to come back to normal. We're going to learn a lot from this pandemic. But it is up to our local trustees and should be the ones that govern our Montana public schools.
Elsie, our next question. Your office has been very responsive during the pandemic. What has been done to help our schools through the pandemic, and what can we expect moving forward?
Thank you. As an elected official, and in Montana, I am one of the 5 constitutional officers, and I am so blessed to be able to do what I do for the children of Montana. So the number one thing that we've carried through from the time that I took the oath of office till now, and even through the pandemic, is that we put our children first. We put our children's health and safety, of course, in a pandemic first. But it's about mental health as it is about physical health. It's making sure that when COVID happened, that we at the agency, not just myself, because as an elected official, I'm only as good as the people that surround me. And these are fabulous employees. These are government employees that want that same mission that I have instilled. And when I got in, it had been 30 years since a Republican had held this position. So there was quite an exodus out under my leadership. And now we have the most fabulous team that is putting our children first, putting our local school districts first. So what we did is we reached right away to the governor's office, asking him to clarify, what does it mean when schools close? Does that mean learning stops? Doesn't. So then we went ahead and we heard nothing from that on what that meant. So we then determined that learning must continue. So we created a virtual hub class where we had over 7,000 teachers. Half of our teachers in Montana took a class to understand what it's like to teach remotely, to teach digitally. Because from our university system and our teacher prep programs, teachers don't know how to do that. I never knew how to do that. And so we schooled them up and they completed the rest of their year. And I was so pleased then that the governor did say schools can reopen on May 7th. So we had schools here in Gallatin County that did. They opened very safely. They opened with local control. They took and embraced their community, their teachers, and their landowners, and they said, can we, should we? And they did in a very safe manner. I'm very proud of the leadership of the superintendent there at Willow Creek. The other thing that we did is we brought 100 voices from Montana across our state, in teachers, in students, in parents, in community members, in businesses, and said, we're going to have some unique opportunities given to us, and taking opportunities in a pandemic is challenging. But what can we do to give more flexibility, to allow that precious tax dollar to be stretched longer, to be stretched wider, to give to a child that might be in need? And these 100 voices came together with great guidance that we have then shipped out to schools. We've held over 3,000 Zoom calls with school leaders across our state. We have worked with other partnerships. We've brought the American Association of Pediatrics into Zoom world, where over 400 of our school leaders have been able to ask some questions on health and mental health especially. Yesterday, we brought the Bureau of Economic Research from the University of Montana in to discuss what does reopening our economy and reopening our public school system have to do with the health of Montana. We've also talked to the Montana High School Sports Association with all these leaders. And this is just within this last month. But connecting with our schools right now in a pandemic, even in summer, is more important than any. Also connecting with parents. I was a PTA member when I was just a mom in school, and then I became PTA president at Sandstone Elementary in Billings. And that brought on wonderful opportunities where I networked with teachers and I got to understand things more so than ever before. So it's our parents, it's our organizations and our communities that are helping us at the state level learn what is going on in the pandemic. It's not government doing this. It's not saying that it's coming from the federal government that is saving our schools in Montana. This is a grassroots approach that is coming from our local communities that are coming up with very creative, innovative ideas, not just on safety and wellness, but how we deliver education in very rural Montana and in a very urban setting here in the Gallatin. I'm very proud of Montanans' resiliency. I'm a fourth generation Montanan, and I firmly believe that we're here to stay, that we're learning, that we are going to make Montana proud, even past this pandemic.
The next question, how has your experience in the legislature helped serve our students as superintendent of public instruction?
Thank you. You know, the path to the legislature was quite interesting for Elsie. My mom and dad are public school teachers, or I should say were. They're with the Lord right now. And smiling down and giving me every single bit of encouragement through this pandemic and through my role as state superintendent. I have a degree in economics and in business, and thought, as much as the discussion there was around the kitchen table with education, that I wanted to go into the business world. Became a teacher when I had children, and after that PTA presidency, I determined I'm so much in the building and I know so much about what's happening in education from that viewpoint. So let's get a degree. So I got my degree in education from MSU, and my other one, the economics degree, came from University of Montana. So it's that 50-yard line look that I put on in Montana. So my mother was head of the bargaining unit for the union in Billings, and there was a strike about 15 years before I became a teacher. And my mother was the one who painted the signs. My mother was the one who organized the strike line. And my father was the one who crossed the line. My dad was the one that crossed the picket line and went inside. Well, you can imagine the turmoil that occurred in my family. And we had to close our windows, close our kitchen door, close everything, because I'm sure the neighbors could hear everything that was happening in our family's home. We left our church, our family left where we shopped, left our dentist, left all of that, because there was such a deep anxiety and rub, because my family was engaged in many different ways in that teacher strike. So I learned a lot from that. And then I became a teacher. And then in 2002, there was another work stoppage. My father walked the line with me. It was about healthcare. But more so about healthcare, it was the manner and the way that the school board in Billings attributed to the strike. I felt as a teacher that I had no voice. I felt as a teacher I had no other recourse but to join the union and to walk that line. And I walked it with my dad, and I learned so much about Elsie. So then 2 years later, I received a call to run for the legislature. You know, you take all these stories with you and they become who you are. So going into the legislature, I realized there was going to be lines in the sand that people don't cross. But I also know in Montana, we build bridges and we build barns that have been burnt down to the ground. And my role as a legislator was to make sure that we were going to build things, not tear them down. So I know who I am. I know I'm pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life. I also know that I'm a conservative, that dollars are precious. And in order for government to even exist, it is your tax dollars that comes from you that you may not give readily that supply government. I believe in great government, and I believe in less government. So everything that Elsie has been is who Elsie is today at this point. Another part of my history is that my grandparents on my mother's side were Baptist missionaries down at Crow for many, many years. It's a matriarchal society, which means that the women are the ones who lead. And my grandparents and my mother were initiated into the Crow families under Florence Rilberts. And all I know from that is I come from a family of leaders. I come from a family of women who want to change things for the better. And in my role right now, how blessed I am to be able to change and make better the lives of over 150,000 public school children. So in a pandemic, we can reflect and learn and understand, but then we put that first foot forward so that we can make sure that we are doing better, that we are building. And I know under my leadership, we have built, and we are going to continue to build with the vote and with the blessings and the prayers from many Montanans this next election cycle.
Next question. Many schools do not have flags in their classrooms. How can we bring back the Pledge of Allegiance to the classroom?
So my dad was a teacher, like I said. Well, my father was an American history teacher. So I learned civics while I was out fossil hunting with them, while we were out shooting, where we were out in beautiful Montana. Dad comes from eastern Montana, in a town that's no longer there anymore, in Richland County. And my dad taught me about the original documents. He taught me about the founding documents and the part that they played in building America. And as a 5th grade teacher for 23 years, I was given the ability to use the curriculum from the school district, but also the state standards, which was American history, and understanding that there is conflict to be able to build. So I taught my 5th graders of 23 years the conquest of South and North America. And I taught them that we fought many, many battles because there were disagreements. But the disagreements ended in great opportunities for Americans, and great opportunities for Americans to show the rest of the world what a republic looked like. So that background then led me into the classroom, where I would notice that there is not a Montana flag, and there is not necessarily an American flag either. As a legislator, I know that it is in law that children need to say the pledge, and it is a must and a shall that they shall say the pledge. But if there's not the grand old flag there that represents the red, white, and blue, then the meaning may be lost, and those words that surround the pledge may be lost. I'm a firm believer in middle school. I think if I reflect on my own middle school and I reflect on where middle school is in children's development, that they have a mind that is malleable because we've given them skills in that elementary. And we're seeking them to cross that stage and be engaged in high school. So I am putting stars and stripes in every classroom in middle school in Montana. This is going to be unrolled on Patriots Day. This is September 11th. I talk about partnerships because I can't do this alone. I have a great partnership with the American Legion. The Montana American Legion has over 127 different posts across our state, from rural Montana to who we are here in Gallatin County. And these men and women, these brave men and women, are pledging to help the support to put these flags in our classrooms. But the flag represents freedom. The flag represents that it has taken us a while to get to who we are with all of these freedoms. And it's an honor symbol. It's a respect symbol. And I believe we need that. Not only do we need that in Montana, but our nation is struggling, and our nation needs to know this. So I do know the American Legion, in a partnership, is planning on, if this is successful in rolling stars and stripes in every classroom in Montana, that this is going to be a national movement. And I'm so honored and so pleased that we will be able to have an imprint in Montana to take nationally, to show the respect of all of the young men and women who have served our great nation, who are serving our state in National Guard, and making sure that our freedoms ring clearly and loudly from one end of our nation to another.
As a member of the Land Board, you oversee decisions that impact our school's bottom line. What kinds of decisions do you view as triumphs for our schools and our public lands?
Thank you. You know, I told you I was a conservative, which means that the precious tax dollars that we receive in public schools and in government, they have a great opportunity. And in the Land Board, it is exceedingly important that we have a business mind. So this is where I put my economics degree. That's a go Grizz. I know I'm in Cat's Land right now, but it's a go Grizz. Because what this means is the decisions that I make with the other 4 constitutional members means that it's the first dollar that flows into our public schools. So the Office of Public Instruction, in a 2-year biennium period, is given $2.3 billion budgets. That means then that annually I flow out around $900 million in monthly payments to our schools. And it's very secure, it's a very trustworthy thing. We make sure that the dollars go out quickly and they're scripted so that the dollar that is a promise from the legislature is given in a promise to our public schools. 20% of this $900 million that annually goes out monthly comes from the Land Board. Now, this means that in a timber harvest, this could be in subsurface and surface mining, could be in a retail market. But more importantly, this is about agriculture, because majority of the dollars that flow into that 20% comes off our ag leasing. Montana is still number one in ag. And COVID has hurt this very much because our global markets are shuttered. We need to make sure that we open these markets to get our world-class products to market, and they can get the best price so that our farmers and our ranchers can begin that cycle again. So the decisions that we make in the land board must be timely. I'm challenged with the way this is being led out of the governor's office. We meet every month, but sometimes some of these projects have been worked on for 2 years. I don't get them until 3 to 4 days before I have to make a vote. That is not good government. That's not what the legislative process is. We vet it very, very carefully before a button of green or red is pressed. The other part that is happening in the land board, and I realize we must be flexible. I've seen a lot of wind farms. I've seen a tremendous amount of solar farms. We have energy storage units that are coming from all different ways of technology, and we must embrace that. But during this transition to a different form of energy, we must remain consistent to who we are. And that means that we are a treasure state of coal. And I know this is a bigger discussion than one I can ever offer now. But one of the things that we balance in the land board is making sure that we have the greatest impact of dollar to our public schools. So we're in transition now. So all energy matters is what I'm saying. It's not just the nuance of renewable energy. We must embrace, but we must also maintain the traditional manner that we have. The other thing that we must do is in government, for a great government, we must talk together. So Department of Natural Resources, where the land board and all the workings is housed, visits with Fish, Wildlife, and Park, and they don't get along. There's problems, which means there's a kink in the information, which means then the flow does not come in a manner that I or any of the other land board members can make a good determination. So it is important that leadership happens. We need a governor that will go ahead and supply that leadership of having communication, having bright, reflective, responsive communication, so that in a land board decision, we can do what's best for Montana, what's best for our landowners, as much as it is what's best for our beautiful state. We are the treasure state. Our treasures are more than what's in the ground or on the ground. Our treasures are our beautiful vistas that we see. Our treasures are how gracious and kind our people are in Montana, because we have access to our public lands. I think every Montanan, regardless if you are a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, we are so blessed to live in this beautiful, grand state. And I am taking everything with the land board and everything they've given me in information to the betterment that I can to serve our public schools.
Elsie, this is our last question. So for those watching on Facebook, please ask your questions now. What role do school resource officers play in reopening schools safely?
School resource officers. Well, as a 5th grade teacher, I'm going to come back to what I know. I know that I can't do it alone. I do know that the DARE officers and the resource officers that I have had in my classroom, and not only in my classroom, but they play ball on the playground. They are also the ones that they first see, can I go talk to Officer Jones? And because Officer Jones then can talk to them and listen to some of their challenges that they have. So that extension of me is what a school resource officer can do. It also shouts out that we support and we back the blue in Montana. Not only the blue, but the brown. Because in many of our rural communities, our resource officers are from our sheriff's department and from our highway department. And they take that precious time and energy to make that relationship. Remember I talked about building Montana? That is what happens with a school resource officer. We have very few of them. We have about 50 of them in our 821 schools. We need more. Not more because they're packing, not more because they're the level of authority, but we need more of those individuals, especially in a pandemic, to say to our children and to understand with our students that you're okay, that we're going to get through this. And I've got your back because you've got mine. So resource officers in schools, it's been around for a many period of time. And resource officers, they're expensive. Everything is expensive, it seems so anymore. But don't you think if we trust our trustees to make that right budgetary decision, that they will include that component part of education that doesn't necessarily have a curriculum or a book to it, but it has a smile and it has someone who says, I understand. And I believe that's the type of education that's needed in Montana and should continue, whether you're in rural Montana or where you're here in the Gallatin. It's very important that our schools reflect who we are. And law enforcement in Montana is respected and should continue to be respected by all Montanans, young and old.
Well, Elsie, that was our last question. So do you have any closing remarks or anything that you would like to say to our audience?
Thank you very much. What a wonderful opportunity to be able to be part of this. We're in a pandemic, but we shouldn't panic. And I want to be really hopeful about schools opening. It's been challenging. From the moment they closed on March 15th to the moment that the governor said we could open May 7th to finish out the school year, graduation looked different. To celebrate those graduates who are going to be employed amongst our community members, we need to champion them. I had about 120 pre-service teachers that didn't complete at the university sitting. And I know here in Bozeman for sure, and in Missoula, and in our other 8 teacher prep programs. We need to embrace them and mentor them because we need that quality teacher. We need that Montana-made teacher more expressly. The other part of this is, I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. And my family has given a lot up for me to be able to serve you. So I honor my family. I honor my daughters, my grandchildren who are in public school. Public service nowadays is challenging. Digital interface is challenging. But Montana, listen, we're resilient. We're going to get through this. We're going to be even healthier on the outset of this. Support our children. Support our families that are making the decision. Should we go to school? Should we be in digital world? When should I go to homeschool? When should I be in a Christian school? When should I have that choice? It's a tough decision. Support that decision. Do not judge. They're doing it for their children. The children in Montana are our future. In public school, in private school, at that kitchen table school. They are our future. Let's embrace our future positively as we build Montana through this pandemic. Thank you for this opportunity again, and many blessings, and please stay well.
Well, this concludes our Facebook live stream. I would like to thank Elsie Arntzen for joining us today, along with the audience for your thoughtful questions. It was a great Facebook live stream, and Elsie provided so much for us to think about. This video will be on our website at GallatinCountyRepublicanWomen.com. I would like to extend a very big thank you to Jeff Bent, owner of Obsidian Realty Group, for providing the location and camera equipment and still keeping social distancing in mind. And to the Gallatin County Republican Women Board members, Stacy Jacobs, Karen Clements, and Mary Pham for arranging today's Facebook live stream. Please go to Gallatin County Republican Women for information on upcoming events. Our next guest speaker will be Jorge Galicia. He grew up in Venezuela but managed to get to America with asylum and later graduated from college. He was heavily involved in the liberty movement and anti-Nicolas Maduro protest. His best friend was captured and jailed for demonstrating, and Jorge had to hide out and off the grid until they both escaped to America. Jorge will show a 30-minute video on their story and his experiences while living in a socialist country. Again, thank you all very much for joining us this evening, and we appreciate Elsie giving that great speech. Thank you.